The Australian dollar has just collapsed again overnight since the United States slapped tariffs all over the world again. And who would have thought that the Australian dollar would have collapsed? Well, I think there's some good reasons why. And let me point out the golden period of the Australian dollar back in 2011, 2012, 2013, and why the Australian dollar went to parity with the US dollar, and in fact overtook it by 5 cents or more at one stage. Now, the reason for that, it was a bit of an anomaly for a country like Australia, a resource-rich country that was selling resources to China. It was a mining boom, and China was buying a lot of Australian resources with US dollars. That was basically it. The other factors were China had an incentive back then to try to brown nose to the United States and Australia while ignoring all of the cheaper options in Africa, Indonesia, and many other resource-rich countries that they could have been buying the exact same resources for a fraction of the price. But they decided to go with Australia, use the US dollar to do so, and buy extremely expensive resources from Australia, just to kind of brown nose. And that was a period where China still thought, or at least was playing the game, that they could still be friends with the West. Kind of playing both sides. The other factor is Australia didn't have to spend any money to protect any of its trade that went through the South China Sea. It was getting paid handsomely in US dollars from China. There was no overhead costs, and most of Asia but still believed back in 2011 that aircraft carriers were the most dangerous weapon there were. And during that period, China was spending a lot of money distracting us and building up its military, building up its navy, and preparing to take the South China Sea. So it was a sweet spot for Australia, and it pumped up the Australian dollar artificially. Now, I still believe that things are only going to get worse over time. Australia will eventually become Venezuela. The Australian dollar will continue to slide and eventually be worth only a fraction of what whatever currency the Chinese are using in the near future. And, maybe in the next 10, 15 years, China will be able to buy resources from Australia for a fraction of the price that they used to. Basically because the South China Sea, our trade will be uncertain, and the power dynamic will totally shift, where we will be giving almost free resources to China, hoping that they don't hurt our international trade and protect our trade, because the United States will no longer be able to do so. So things have changed. The Australian dollar is collapsing in real time. You can have a close look. It is not looking pretty at all. Back in 2018, the video that actually put me, didn't get me in trouble, but it got me investigated. Back in 2018, I basically mentioned the same things I just mentioned to you guys right now. They seem to be happening. It's not some sort of magic. I'm not some Nostradamus. There's pretty simple things that are happening out there, and you can see them yourself. The Australian dollar is going to continue to slide. It is going to continue to become weaker. China's navy is going to continue to pressure the United States, and it's going to become more expensive for Australian trade throughout Asia. Back in 2018, I also said that immigration and the cost of living and rent seeking will cause a lot of trouble for Australia, and that everybody should buy gold. So if you have a look at the gold price right now, it's just been in a bull run for the last year or two. Gold is a bubble about to burst. It's just bursting at the seams. And so things are not looking good for Australians, and that is also why I suggested to a lot of Australians that while the Australian dollar is still useful, it is still valuable to some extent. It is sliding, it is collapsing as we speak, but you still have more purchasing power around the world than most people. So you can go and use that to your advantage. You can go on a holiday, you can go and take advantage of the Australian dollar. I would also recommend that you get on a plane and just don't go back. Go and enjoy your life before Australia collapses, or use that cash to travel to another country where you might have a future. If you have a Chinese background, China has a great future. There's many countries in Asia that have great futures moving forward. Australia is just not one of them. We are also controlled by a genocidal maniac dictatorship that is, on the verge of creating some sort of a genocide in Australia. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about the Australian dollar, the fact that only a couple of weeks ago, the Chinese circumnavigated Australia and did live fire drills off the coast of Sydney, basically. Just signaling and letting us know how weak and vulnerable we are. And the Australian dollar keeps collapsing as a result of that. Investment isn't coming into Australia. What is happening, and let's talk about property. So the property Ponzi scheme that is valued in Australian dollars, your property, it is a Zimbabwe type of currency manipulation connected to the Australian property market, where the property you own, it might be worth 1 million, maybe tomorrow it'll be worth 2 million. Lucky you. It might be worth $1 billion soon, but $1 billion might not buy you a loaf of bread in China soon. It's valued in Australian dollars. And so what they've done is, the people who run the genocidal maniacs that hate white people and white men and colonizing us and flooding us with immigrants, they're pumping up a property Ponzi scheme to cover up the theft. I don't know exactly how it works because we can't see behind the curtain. We don't know what the governments are doing. We don't know what the bankers are doing. It is extremely difficult to see what is going behind the curtain. There's a black box there and we cannot see inside. We don't know exactly what's going on. But from the outside, it seems to me that your labor, your hard work, your intelligence, your innovation, your productivity, they've set up a system to trick you into putting all of your hard work and labor and resources into a property market that is no longer useful on the international stage. You used to see, 1 million Australian dollars as 1 million US dollars. It is almost worth only half a million US dollars now. So you're purchasing you're purchasing power abroad is decreasing by the day, while the property prices keep exploding at home. While whoever's running this country, these genocidal maniacs, continue to steal what is left out of the country. I don't know exactly where all the money's going. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but there is definitely cash flowing out of Australia, and it's been happening since the mining boom. One of the videos that caused me to be investigated by ASIC was my suggestion that around $250 billion by my estimations about 7 years ago was being stolen out of the Australian economy. And I still think that that is happening today. Inflation, and it's just pumping up the property prices when the property prices really shouldn't be that high, in a almost Zimbabwe hyperinflationary way, so that, out the back door somehow they're stealing your money. It's a proper collapse of Australian society, and everybody is suffering because of the corrupt government that is doing it to you. A lot of the problems could be solved by a government that actually cared about you, but what they're doing is, the average Australian expects a retirement, expects healthcare. The average Australian expects some sort of resemblance of the Australian dream, and that's not going to be possible. So they're flooding us with immigrants that don't expect to have a retirement. Those expectations are going to overtake your expectations. And all of the theft from the genocidal maniacs that run the country, they will get away with it, the same way they got away with the lockdowns and everything else. There's nothing you can do about that. But if you have property, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth what you think it's worth, because it is a bit of a Ponzi scheme. So anyway, that's my thoughts. It would be good if, I had some suggestions. If any of you guys have been watching me since 2018, 17, 18, where I suggested to buy gold and silver, it's time to sell. We're in a bubble. Make your cash, baby. And in the members sections, I am posting and talking about what I think the next one is. And it's not gold. There's something else that we're doing. I suggest you join up. Suggest you not supporters, join the insiders part of the members group. And sometimes I'm posting 10 times a day. There's a lot of things going on right now. And as the Australian dollar declines, you're going to need to figure out how to diversify what you're doing. And that's what we're doing. Well, first thing is, I became a refugee. I'm no longer in Australia. I'm a refugee living in Asia, trying to enjoy my life while it all collapses back home. But it's not looking good for Australia. There's not a lot of good things I can say that are happening. A lot of the innovation from highly intelligent, productive, young Aussies is being stolen through rents. And let me explain. If you don't have a surplus of wealth to start up a business or experiment and take risks and gamble on businesses or new inventions, then you're never going to have the ability to innovate. You have to spend it all on rent. And if you're spending all your money on rent, you don't have cash to start up a business. And so therefore there's either the communist state, the CSIRO, or other state-sponsored science laboratories, science departments that have the breakthroughs. If not, there's no other innovation within the Australian society, because the other intelligent, hardworking people who don't work their way up through the system have to spend all their money on rent and cannot gamble on businesses to try to create something new. It's just not out there. It's not possible. people just can't do it. And so there's no new innovation in the system. And the Australian dollar keeps declining. Property prices are, it's impossible now, and it's going to continue to become worse because it's a massive bubble. But the bubble, I don't think will burst. I think the bubble will continue to go up until it's another form of hyperinflation. It's a more dirty, sneaky, insidious way of hyperinflating the Australian economy through property. And then the rents will continue to go up, and nobody will have the freedom to innovate, start new businesses, contribute to productivity in any way, shape or form in Australia, because the rent-seeking parasites continue to steal through inflation, property prices and rents. It's kind of a bastard child feudal society that has been built up in this Orwellian nightmare by the genocidal maniacs that control the Middle East as well. So that's my late night thoughts. That's my late night, not so deep thoughts. I'd like to have some more discussions. There's a few of you guys in the comments that had some questions, and you had some some arguments. And I think I'd leave, like, come on for a debate. Come on and discuss this with me. It would be good if I could get you guys on just for fun. We'll have a little bit of a chat, talk about what is happening. Look, if you take what is happening in Australia too seriously and you don't laugh about it, you're going to cry. And if you feel that way, you might as well get on a flight and come join me in Asia. Come have a drink. come to Asia and come hang out. Come hang out around my pool. I'll see you guys in the next video.